All right, buddy. Welcome in the latest episode of that SEC podcast. I'm your host, Michael Bratton. I go by SEC Mike on Twitter. And joined, as always, by my cousin Shane, who goes by Big Orange Vols on Twitter. What's up, yo, Tennessee Homer?
Hey, buddy, what's going on?
Oh, running late as per usual. But, hey, we got another loaded show, Shane. Absolutely loaded here. We got about, damn near an hour of content we didn't hit on the last episode that we're going to get to. And there's even been more news, more comments since we've last spoke. So we got some of that coming too. So I'm doing great, man. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. I mean, it could be worse. I could be knocked out in a bar like Vince Young, No, I don't know if you've seen that video floating around, but damn, he got caught, man. He got caught, and it looked like he was trying to kind of stay out of it, tried to be and that's usually what happens. The peacekeeper got it. But Vince, man, I ain't seen him get hit that hard since the NFL, man.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was brutal, Shane, but I don't even know if that was the most brutal thing that I've seen here in the last 12 hours or so in the SEC. We're going to get to that in just a minute, Shane. We got so many updates here. But, last episode we talked a little bit, Nico, and you were asking me about his leadership and can this man lead and all that. Well, and then we got a clip here I want to play, Shane. And I'm not doubting the man by any means or anything like that, but now that I'm seeing why you're a little bit nervous about all that. Let me pull this up here. And really, it's not so much the man's leadership. I'm kind of kidding, but the question he is asked, because he's bulked up, Shane. He's put on 20-something pounds since he's got here. But the question they asked Nico is the real one I got for you. So let's kick it over to Nico real quick.
I, too, have bulked up, so.
Nico, you said you're 215 now. Do you remember what you were the day you showed up at Tennessee to enroll, and how much do you still enjoy eating at this point?
Yeah, the day I showed up, man, I probably weighed around 190. I was light, kind of like my senior year, so, I've come a long way, and just staying consistent with that. I'm sorry, I didn't get your second part of the question.
Do you still like eating at this point, as much as they make you eat?
Yeah, it's gotten easier, I'd say, in eating like, more meals a day. So, yeah, sometimes I enjoy it, sometimes I don't. But I gotta get done.
So that's what I really wanted to ask you, Shane. Do you still enjoy eating after? And hell, we put on about 20 pounds since last month, so we can relate to Nico.
It's official. I'm the exact opposite of Nico. Could you imagine the luxury of just forgetting to eat? It's like I'm eating my meal and I'm already thinking of the next one. No shit, Mike. Somebody sent me a request. Since I never got those frozen pizzas from Mizzou, I got a request that said, hey, you got to try these frozen pizzas like Detroit or whatever. And I was like, yeah, it's happening tonight. And then my wife's like, hey, you want to order some wings? So then I'm ordering the wings, but I'm like, if they get here soon enough, then there may be a third meal on the list here. So I don't think I'm going to get around to that frozen pizza, Mike. Or am I? Oh, gosh.
Now, Shane, I feel bad, but I just really wanted to play that clip because it was so funny, and I figured you'd have some fun with it. And on the last episode, we talked Ole Miss, we talked Kiffin, but I got to start there again because he had some pretty viral comments here on Tuesday before we start diving into a couple of these other teams. But let's kick it over to Kiffin because this is, it doesn't matter who you run into, Shane, whether it's, it's one of these coaches, it's a fan, it's a player. I mean, they're all inundated with NIL, portal, all this, and it's because no one has any answers. No, there's no leadership. We're just kind of going willy-nilly, and we support the players getting paid, as does Kiffin. But think about what he's saying here, and he's not naming any Alabama linemen, but I think that's clearly who he's talking about here, and not just calling Caden Proctor out, but just basically the entire way this is all being handled. Let's kick it over to Kiffin.
I mean, here again, just a really stupid system, but hey, good for the players, maybe. I mean, it's good for them financially. I don't know that it's really good for them. They know they can leave anytime, and whenever something goes wrong, they're just going to run no matter what. But I think what you're going to see, and I said this when they first started this, you're going to see people, and maybe it just happened with a high-profile player, that I'm going to go somewhere in January, I'm going to get their money, I'm going to have never played it down as a transfer, and I'm going to go back in right after spring ball into the portal and go somewhere else and get their money. So, I mean, you can say, yeah, good for the players, but is it? It's good financially for them, but is that really good for college football and necessarily them? That, like, you've created a system, so you can't really blame them. You've created a system that you can go just keep getting money basically at the end of every semester somewhere else and switching spots as many times as you want. Let me go try out this school and take this spot and, make a deal with their collective, and then I'll go try out this one. If it doesn't, I don't get as many balls as I want, or it doesn't go my way, that's not good. And I think you are going to see that. I think you're going to see players that just signed in January that are going to go back in having taken the money, which is fine, and go another place and never played there. And it's not because necessarily they had a terrible spring. It's just because the system allows that.
Is there anything measures you take to try to limit that or prevent that from happening to you guys?
No, I mean, I brought it up at meetings when they first went down this second thing. I'm like, you better make something where you got to sign for a year. So all these portal players that after last season go in, at least they sign for 1 year, not one semester without playing in the off season. Would the NFL team, would that happen in the NFL? Hey, go sign, in the off season after the season and get a contract and get paid. And then before you ever play, go somewhere else.
Coach, with all the new additions up front, how do you balance creating competition with also building continuity with the offensive line group?
Sorry, I was still on the last question. Go ahead.
You good?
Because again, I'm saying on the last one, I have these rants on this thing, but because it's really a system. It is. Now we're going to utilize it, just like the player uses. I'm not mad at the player. They're going to utilize the system. We're going to utilize it and make the best roster that we can, but it's not good. Go ahead.
Shane, sounds like somebody's trying to be Nick Saban's replacement, doesn't it?
But I get it. I get it. And it's almost like he's, right now things are good at Ole Miss, but they could be bad, if some of these other programs figured out the portal game, if they're playing it at the level that like Drink and Kiffin were at some of these other programs, who knows? They could just create these dynamic powerhouses that just funnel money, and it's just a gateway to the NFL. So I'm curious how this thing plays out. Obviously, it feels like it's going to come to a head at some point, but it's a joke. Proctor's an example. The name that's floating around right now is Judkins going back to Ole Miss, which could happen, because he went to Ohio State. So when the spring opens up, what would you say? Judkins took that money, went up there, and then he came down and made a mockery and playing with Ole Miss. I don't know. It is a broken system right now. So I do support that message that Kiffin's throwing out.
Yeah, cousin Jeff's got a good message here, Shane. Lane shouldn't be criticizing people for lacking loyalty, glass houses and such, but that is fair. But again, I don't know that there are any answers, but clearly some frustration there from the Portal King nonetheless.
Let me ask you on that note, Mike, because, when you talk transfer portal, Lane Kiffin's the first name that keeps coming up. What Ole Miss has created, what they've brought down there. He's out here leading this fight. Is it more because he's afraid of what it could be, or is this just optics? He's just so he doesn't look like the. I'm trying to. I feel like it's just like he thinks that he's in this small little bubble and it could get taken away from him. If somebody else kind of figures that puzzle out.
Oh, no doubt. I think he's 100%. He is, again, it's a joke. Portal King, all that. Whatever. They had 20, 25 guys a year. That's why they call him that. But in reality, Shane, he has been the master at manipulating it with the Auburn job coming open. And, maybe I'll go to Auburn. We don't have the players. We don't have the fan support. They ain't showing up to the game. All of a sudden, Alabama jobs open up. All of a sudden, Florida State had their coach left. Guess what? I would have went to he didn't say that, but the same agent said his agent let it be known, hey, Florida State would have wanted Lane. What does this do, Shane? This drives every Ole Miss fan that loves Lane Kiffin to donate money to the NIL, and that's and they've made use of that money. I mean, hell, you could say the same thing about Texas and Texas A&M all these years, and they don't do shit with it. So it's not like it's just money, but I think they have played it well. And yeah, I mean, if Ole Miss goes 8-4, I have no idea how much money they put into the collective, but let's just say it's $10 million.
Yeah.
If they go 8-4, they ain't getting $10 million next year. They're going to say, you blew it. Now, if they go 11-1, 12-0, they'll probably give him 12 to 15 million next year. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I think that's the thing. He realizes, they have it rolling right now, and they're making the money, and they have the money to spend. But one disappointment, and hell, even 9-3 may be a disappointment to some of these fans, especially if they miss the 12-team playoff. That bank is going to get shut off to him, I feel like.
You ever watch that movie Slevin? It's probably been a while, but it started off with a horse that everybody knew was going to win because it was juiced up, and then you just knew it. You knew this horse. Everybody put money on this horse until it broke its damn leg or heart attack or something happened there right at the finish line. Even though he was leading, it feels like we all know Ole Miss can win. We all know that they should win. They're juiced, man. They got a loaded roster now. But like you said, if they stumble or if they break a leg, everybody's going to look back and they're going to want their money. So, yeah, I just Ole Miss is teed up nicely, brother. It's teed up nice. And you're showing the schedule right now. It's a lovely schedule because it doesn't have Alabama. It doesn't have Tennessee. It doesn't have a Texas A&M. Some of these programs that have kind of knocked Ole Miss off in years past, they don't have to deal with them.
Yep. And then, but hey, sticking more to football, Shane, and where Ole Miss could have a real advantage. This is something that I've been talking about. I think the helmet communication is really going to help a lot of these offensive-minded coaches, particularly if they have a quarterback of a high caliber that they could communicate with. Lane Kiffin's called it a cheat code.
So it was an option in the bowl season. I think they're kind of talking about it more. Just your thoughts on would y'all enact that communication between coach and the quarterback in the helmets?
Yeah, I've been part of those conversations for a long time, in SC meetings, and they're usually defensive head coach driven about, hey, we need to have our middle linebacker like the NFL have this, and then people can stop stealing our signals. So it's here, and we utilize it in practice, and our first time getting used to it. I think differently, especially after using it. I think it's really like having a cheat code in Madden offensively, and I don't know that they've really thought defensively of what exactly that means. I think the assumption is just, you talk to the quarterback, but there's really more to it than that, especially the way we run our offense. So without giving too much in that of what it allows us to do with signals, with the whole process, I think it's a cheat code offensively if you do certain things offensively. So defenses coaches always wanted it. So it's here.
It's one of those things, Shane. Be careful what you wish for.
Oh, we all got a friend like Lane Kiffin, don't we? Just like never happy. It's like things could be going perfect, and it's like, yeah, but we got to die someday, It's like, damn, why are you bringing it down here? We just finally got this stuff in our headset. Yeah, I do think that there'll probably be changes along the way. They're going to figure out, they're going to make mistakes, but I'm glad that it got implemented because guess what? We just had a team win a damn national championship by cheating, So right. Now that we're doing this so that we don't have that problem in the future. But don't be surprised if they don't start reducing the amount of time in the headset and that sort of thing. There'll be some rules coming off of this thing, but damn, Lane, let's have one good season with it.
Well, and one thing that he's kind of referencing there, the way they run their system, Shane, it is going to be to the benefit of these tempo teams. Because, again, the rule, for anybody that's missed it, when the play clock hits 15 seconds, or obviously under, when it hits 15, the mic gets shut off. Now, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Mississippi State, Oklahoma, they're snapping the ball with 35 seconds on the play clock. So it's not going to affect them to the same degree of any of these teams that are trying to milk the clock. So, again, we'll have to see how big of a factor that really is. But I think this is going to be huge. And I think now that these coaches got their hands on it, they're experimenting with it this spring. It's pretty eye-opening to them what an advantage this is over last year where you had to signal in with all the idiots on the sideline.
Yeah, and some of these teams that aren't tempo, don't be surprised if you don't see some more of that, or at least a little bit of a hurry up, maybe a series or two, just to kind of take advantage of that 15 seconds.
Yep. Well, Shane, we got one more Ole Miss clip. And I swear we're going to move on to some different teams here. We're going to do the Florida Gators. But before we did that, I did want to play this clip. This has gone viral now, Shane. Yeah. This is Princely, who transferred in. He's one of Florida's best pass rusher, one of their better players, one of the top 10 overall portal gets in the entire country. Now he's an Ole Miss Rebel. He was asked, hey, what could you learn from last year? How could you get better? Well, basically, it sounds like, in his mind, his words, not mine, he's finally getting coached.
And just last year, what do you think you excelled at, and some things you wanted to work on this offseason?
I feel like last year I excelled at, get pass rushing. I didn't have like my sacks, it wasn't double digit. It didn't like pop off the screen. But, if you go and watch the film, I would get to the quarterback a lot, like right before he would throw the ball and things like that. So, I had a lot of good pass rush reps. I feel like I was one of the best in the country as far as pass rushing. I feel like this season I could work on something that from last season I could work on better is my drops and my attacking the run game a little bit. But I feel like here I'm getting coached harder for things like that. I feel like at Florida, like the way I was coached, it was kind of like, it was almost as if like they was just telling me to go out there and use my talent, if that makes sense. But here, Coach Lou and Coach Joyner, they really on me about the little things, attacking the run. Coach Lou really goes through the progressions of the drops and the routes that are being run when I have to go into coverage. Like when I was at Florida, it was like they would just tell me, go drop to this area, and I would have to figure out everything else on my own. But here, they go real into depth. I feel like I'm actually getting, developed here.
Damn. Oh, Billy's watching this saying, what the hell, man?
Yeah, that was me doing my Billy Napier impersonation there. But, yeah, my goodness, Shane, I guess that can happen when you hire a 28, 29-year-old defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
And it blows up in your face. But, hey, again, it's going to be an offseason of burying the Florida Gators. I'm not here to do that, Shane. Let's talk Florida just a second. But, hey, all of a sudden, November 23rd, that Ole Miss game, we're ramping it up. I mean, Ole Miss should be really good this year. So there's some more fire to that football game, Shane. But Billy Napier.
Wait, go back to that one.
Yes, sir.
Because maybe the other one will be off suspension by November 2nd. The other one that was burying the Florida Gators as he left out of town in a car that he probably shouldn't have been driving. That's the thing. You're going to say this shit on your way out. You're going to say it when you're at the other program. I get it. But it did feel a little honest in that conversation. And I think that's not so much to do with Billy as it is maybe that defensive coordinator down there at Florida. And maybe that's the reason that has been addressed in the offseason. So these boys are all going to talk. They're all going to talk on their way out. So Florida just keeps getting hit.
Now that you're making me think about it, though, Shane, again, and I'm not I'm not calling these guys their character into question because I don't know. So, but again, we did just have an arrest. Now we got these viral comments. Maybe we've cleared people out that don't really need to be in Gainesville. You know what I mean?
Right.
So there's your silver lining right there. We got the guys. All we need is all we got. That's usually what people say when their best players transfer out. But hey, maybe it's true down in Gainesville. And again, everybody's dancing on Napier's grave, and they're going to be awful, yada yada yada. Well, according to Billy Napier, and again, you got to realize, Shane, this is the first time that this is basically 80% or more Billy Napier guys. This ain't Dan Mullen guys anymore. We've got the experience. We're stacking class after class on top of each other. We got some impact players coming in via the portal. We got two of the most highest rated freshmen in the entire country. Billy Napier seems like he really likes his team going into this season.
So you're pretty meticulous about keeping your records from past. Do you have some marks that you were hoping to hit by this point? I mean, what did you hope to see by this point? Are you seeing it? And is there a unit maybe that's elevated itself, to where you're kind of like going, yeah, I'm liking what I'm seeing?
Yeah, I don't necessarily know that we've got quotas that we're trying to hit or anything like that. I mean, we evaluate every single rep of every single day, right? And then we take the entire practice and then we kind of build our plan for improvement for the next day. I think I would just say I'm evaluating Florida, based off, and obviously it's completely different than Louisiana to some degree in terms of the evolution of our team. But experience matters, and I think we had 20,000 snaps of experience, I think, year one and year two. And we're working with a group that's got 41,000 snaps of experience, right? So it's a veteran team. There's a different level of leadership, accountability, the character dynamic. Just look forward to coming to work, and I think the new staff has created some energy, and they're making an impact. The combination of those two things has me excited. I think I believe in our team. I do. I walked off the field today. I think we got a chance to have a good football team.
Position group.
The staff's bringing energy, but not to the presser. So I'll just say that, Shane. I mean, he's still low energy, but that's just who he is. But again, I don't know. Something tells me, Shane, that Florida Gators are going to be a lot better than people realize right now.
Yeah, I do too, Mike. And trust me, I like to put them down as often as I can, for all the years they've brought heartache to my family and my closest friends. But I will tell you this, brother. One of the things he hit on is the team gotten older. They've learned. It's experience. Because I think sometimes that youth shone through last season. When you look at games like Arkansas and you look at games like Mizzou, there were some dumb mistakes made by those players that you learn off of. And if you're not making those mistakes, then those close games become wins. And, wins ultimately is what we're after here. So, yeah, they got a tough road. We know the schedule. We know everything. But one thing about this roster, it seems like they're all in now. We've got the noise out of the locker room. They've each got each other's back. They can't afford to miss, so they've got to hit the ground running immediately because that Miami game is so pivotal there week one.
Yeah, Cousin Jeff says Florida's going to go 1-11 with a win over Tennessee.
Yeah, you know it. That one's going to be the one that they play their damn lights out. So.
Well, and again, this may be a ridiculous comment, but I did just a small amount of research, so I'm going to use it anyway, Shane. It's late March here. Nobody gives a damn where you're recruiting at right now or, necessarily the class because it'll not look anything like it does today. But when we think of the guys on the hottest hot seat in the SEC, right, we think of Napier. Yeah. We think of Pittman. Maybe Clark Lee, and maybe Shane Beamer, right?
Right.
Billy Napier has got as many commits right now as the rest of those three guys have combined. So, again, it's not to say that, like, their class will be amazing or anything like that or these other guys are doomed. But the point being is whatever message they're putting out, the players are still buying it, and even high school recruits are buying it. So I think there is more hope than people realize with the Florida Gators right now.
Yeah, and it's with their back against the wall. I mean, it's tough enough for Billy to go out there and recruit for what performance they have had up to this point. Imagine having a 9-win season, 10-win season, then all of a sudden Florida becomes a little bit more attractive for some of these transfers that are coming in for one season to go to the NFL. They're looking for a home to win games, to win championships, or at least compete for them. So that's why everybody in the SEC wants to keep Florida down, because we know once they start hitting those 10, 11-win seasons, they're not going back for a long time.
Right. All right, Shane, let's move on next to LSU, where this is, in my opinion, Shane, this is probably the most intriguing team in the entire SEC, because I don't know quite, I have no idea what to make of them, Shane, with all their losses. They've been winning big. I'm throwing up the schedule here. They've been winning big under Brian Kelly, 10 wins, both his first 2 years. But I love the fact that Brian Kelly comes out here and says, well, hell, that ain't good enough. I didn't come down here to win 10 games. We want to go a step further. But can you do that immediately with the Heisman Trophy winner gone, with 2 elite receivers gone, with a lot of talent on the defensive side gone? You're totally revamping your secondary. So all those reasons. And as we look at the schedule here for LSU, there's not a team on here, Shane, that I don't think LSU could lose to. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I'm not sitting here saying they're going to go undefeated, but you could convince me of damn near every one of these games LSU's either the betting favorite or maybe a 3 to 4 point spread here. So again, I'm not saying they're going to be bad, but I just, after proclaiming them national champions and looking like a damn idiot, I'm not ready to go there right now.
Yeah. Yeah, you said most intriguing. So you're saying right now that LSU is the team that has the most question marks floating around them?
Well, maybe not most question marks, but I guess what I'm really trying to say is, like, if their questions are answered, if they have answers to all the questions, I could see them winning the SEC. If they don't, I could see them being like 10th in the SEC. You know what I mean? Like, right. the variance is wild. Like, in no world could you convince me Georgia would be 10th in the SEC. You know what I mean? So, and again, I think winning the SEC is probably too bold, but, second, third, fourth. I mean, I think that is the expectation of LSU fans, and I'm trying to figure out how they're getting there right now with what they have to work with.
No, it's funny because LSU just seems like there was some obvious off-field decision made that you're just like, okay, that makes sense. Like, okay, they don't have their Heisman quarterback, but they got this guy. Their defense was terrible, but they hired this guy. It's almost like they had an answer for every problem that they faced in the offseason. And like you said, just reading the paper, you're like, well, damn, maybe they do win. So, and Vegas clearly thinks they're going to win a lot of ball games, sitting there at 9.5. So, yeah, maybe LSU is the dark horse this year. We're talking about everybody else. We've talked about several teams that can compete for an SEC championship and possibly make it in that top 12. And LSU's the one that seems like they're not getting the love they probably deserve.
Right, and if they're going to get there, Shane, though, it's going to be players like ones already on the roster that I keep hearing about that are going to be the next big stars at LSU. And where's, again, question mark is maybe too big of a word, but unknowns, I think, is that receiver. And the guy that I keep hearing is Chris Hilton. Brian Kelly says, hey, this is the next great one of our wide receiver down here at LSU. Let's kick it over to Brian Kelly. Hype it up as Chris Hilton.
You spoke of like a seriousness or attention to detail that like he really used to elevate his game. Are you seeing something similar with Chris this year now that he's healthy?
I think, the way that I would describe it is that, those guys, when guys move on, it kind of, it thrusts you into, that position of need, leadership, whatever words you want to call, And he now knows that the mantle has been passed to him, and it's his time. And I think he's really done an outstanding job of, being the next wide receiver up at LSU. He's had a really good spring. He's been, and I think I would evaluate him as somebody that has been consistent. Every day he's gone out there and practiced at a high level, and he's developed a consistency at that position that I think at times maybe you could argue that he was, lacked consistency, whether he was hurt or whether he would drop a ball. We haven't seen any of that, and good for him.
Good for him, Shane. Good for him. That's what I say about you every time we get off a show. I say good for him.
If they do, if this is true, and he's the real deal, that wide receiver gets thrown around so much. There for a little while it felt like Alabama had the reins. You could argue if Ole Miss has a fantastic season with Metcalf and all those guys, Brown that's come through, maybe they have the reins here. So if you were to label a wide receiver right now, which one would you put in that number one spot? And I don't want to put you in the spot, but I'm going to.
Well, it ain't Clemson anymore. Remember they tried to claim it for a little while? It's like, who the hell wants to go play at Clemson to be a receiver? But, yeah, that's a great question, Shane. I'm happy you said Alabama because they kind of for a while there, they kind of went up and stole that. But it was kind of brief. It was only for about 2-3 years. But, I mean, my God, they had about 5 NFL receivers. But I wouldn't quite give it to them because that was, again, this will probably piss them off, Shane, but that felt like a flash in the pan, so to speak. Right. Not that their decades of dominance was any kind of flash, but probably LSU's got to be high on that list. I think Texas under Steve Sarkisian, they have begun to take those strides, so they can get there certainly. How about Ole Miss has been even the years they've been down, they've had some elite receivers. So I think Absolutely. It's a kind of a battle right now, LSU and Ole Miss.
Yeah, no, I'm glad that's kind of where I'm at. LSU's got some real dudes, so top of the food chain, still performing in the in the NFL. So, but I'm kind of with you here, kind of going back and forth. And if this Ole Miss thing works out, and South Carolina's going to hate that Juice is going to get Ole Miss recognition when he gets to the NFL. But it's going to be things like that you're going to lean back and say, damn, Ole Miss has had some dudes come through there. So I'm with you. I'm giving LSU the edge right now, but Ole Miss, I think, is right there at them.
Yeah, well, and then kind of the biggest unknown, so to speak, even though we have seen a little bit from him, Shane, won the bowl game, played at an SEC championship, and carved Georgia's mighty defense up. Of course, I think they were down by about 40 points. So, again, not super impressive, but impressive nonetheless, is Garrett Nussmeier and how far he can engineer LSU. He's a completely different quarterback than Jaden Daniels. Here's Brian Kelly on the progression of Nuss and his leadership there in Baton Rouge.
Hey, Coach, you mentioned the quarterbacks just then. From a leadership standpoint, what have you seen so far this spring from Garrett?
Well, he's a natural leader. He was a leader last year. Even though he didn't start for us, he was seen and regarded as somebody well-respected and as a leader. He has the ears of everybody on the offense. Look, he backs up what he does by deed. I mean, if he says he's going to do something, he does it. And he holds others accountable. He's got a SWAT team that's always at the top in terms of point production each week. He's a guy that, backs up what he does. And guys follow guys that mean what they say and do it. And I think that's, the ultimate respect is that those guys listen to him.
And Shay, we have perhaps a notable omission in the comments. They are going livid that we didn't mention Mizzou as receiver which they could be there this year.
They could be, yeah.
But I love Hot Rod's response here. He says, drunk. He's not even calling him drink. One winning season after going under 500 for 3. Now they're a wide receiver. You come on, man. But hey, that's the offseason. You know, we're all awesome. We're all pumping our chest. We're going to be great. But
I think I would argue that Mizzou has the best receiving room against Ole Miss this year. You know, if I'm looking at two, I mean, damn, there's a lot of good ones out there. But I think you've got arguably the best. I think Weiss is right there. Mook, there's a lot of talent up there in Mizzou and has that opportunity. But we're talking multiple. I mean, when you look at Jamar Chase and Jefferson in the NFL, I mean, those guys are future Pro Bowlers. So I think that's why I keep leaning a little more toward the LSU than maybe some of these other programs.
And that's before Landry and Beckham and so many others. Really, you know what I mean?
And that's just now. I mean, when I was younger, it was different, you know. It's like, you remember those old things? It's like Auburn. Auburn used to be our running back You know, when I thought running back, I thought of Auburn. And that's kind of shifted now. In fact, LSU's had some good ones. So it's like, you kind of go back and forth with some of these ball clubs about who is maybe that's what we'll do one day is come up with our list of who's the running back RBU and Hunter. There is no doubt Tennessee Vols still got that, right? I mean, we've got a few hanging on it.
Well, I'll tell you where they're lacking a lot of that, Shane, and you just referenced there the Auburn Tigers. So let's kick it all down there next to the Plains, where they are still searching for an offensive identity, so inconsistent last year. You know, you took Bama to the wire. You took Georgia basically to the wire. And then you're losing to New Mexico State. You're getting embarrassed in the bowl game. I mean, it was a wild ride, to say the least. So I think that's got to be the biggest goal of the spring, Shane, with they've added new transfers. They've added a top 7 recruiting class. They've got an influx of talent. But can they find that identity this spring with Hugh Freeze taking complete control of the offense? Let's kick it over to him.
Coach, last spring, you talked about finding an identity offensively. You've got offensive coordinator Derek Nixon here. Players have described him as someone who commands respect and attention when he's out there. Who is Auburn football going to be offensively this spring going into the fall?
Well, when we've been our best, and he was with me for a while, and obviously Kent's been with me, and Ben's been with me, Mo's been with me, and we got a lot of people in that room, and we're gone back to our terminology that we're all comfortable with, and that we think we can make adjustments. But ideally, when we've been very good, it's been that 55% run to 45% pass, and if you had that ideal percentage, I think it means you're pretty effective. I mean, some games are skewed a little bit, and if you're running it really, really well, then it may be more 60-40 but you got to be able to do both and stay balanced. And I do think that if we can be consistent in our RPO game, that it really opens up us to be more effective in the passing game, because you're not always having to drop back protect, which I just don't think that's a great recipe in this league. If you're having to call a bunch of drop back protections, usually that other side is a little more athletic and can figure out a way to outnumber you. And so that's the key to me to staying balanced, is us being able to run the ball and throwing the ball off of run actions where you're not having to vertical pass set a whole lot. So that's hopefully what our identity will be.
Yeah, it's Shade. So we do have another great interview coming that we got during the basketball tournament with Neil McCready. He covered Hugh during his run there at Ole Miss, but he said something pretty fascinating, that the man loves credit when things go well, basically, and when they don't, that was all someone else. So again, he's with the moves he's made and the moves he's decided not to make, that may be even more important. And I'm looking right at you, Peyton Thorne. If Peyton Thorne doesn't make a progression, if some of these freshmen don't come in, and they don't got to be stars right away because this is the SEC. It's incredibly difficult, but they've got to make an impact because we need players to step up. If Auburn's offense doesn't do its part this season, I think we're sitting here a year from now saying Hugh Freeze, he may be on one of the hottest seats in the SEC.
Yeah, I don't think it's a make or break season for Hugh Freeze, but he may die on this hill with Thorne, because he's basically said this is my guy, and I kind of you asked an interesting question yesterday about offseason with a new guy coming in, potential race at quarterback. That's what we had last year at Auburn, and we don't now. Peyton's the guy. Peyton's getting all the reps, so maybe he doesn't have that sluggish start like he did last season, So
Right.
they got a pretty favorable schedule right out of the gate. You've got it pulled up here. Short of Cal week 2 and Arkansas week 4, but the first 5 games are at home, so. You have a real opportunity to pick up some momentum, pick up some steam. You're talking about some of those freshmen. Some of those younger players can start contributing by the time that you get into the meat of that schedule. Then who knows? Auburn may hit the over on the 7.5.
Yeah, they better win some of them home games, Shane. Otherwise, they're going to be going on the road to Georgia, Mizzou, Kentucky, try to steal some momentum. And those are some tough places to get a win.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at. It's like, what does that schedule look like next year? Because if it does not go well, you got this same schedule coming back in reverse, and some of those games, like you said, that advantage you have this season with all the home, you won't have next year.
Right. And I got one more clip from Hugh, Shane, but I'm going to save it towards the very end because it's more of a life lesson. It's I want to tease it a little bit here. I about called him the professor. He ain't the professor, Shane, but great family man here, but he's got a family message for us.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Before we get to that, we got some more teams to hit on, Shane, and there's one very brief. Again, DeBoer down at Alabama. He's not been making a ton of waves, Shane. It seems like Nick Saban is staying in the news so that it's keeping Kalen DeBoer out of the news. And maybe that's what they're going for down there. I don't know. But you asked me the other day, who will be active in the portal? It's going to be Alabama because they've got spots to fill and obviously a very attractive program. You can come in, compete immediately for the SEC and a national championship with Kalen DeBoer running the program. But I don't know if you saw this, Shane. Their center, Seth McLaughlin, he's like the most hated man in Tuscaloosa right now.
Yeah.
Transferred to Ohio State, snapping issues all year. The Rose Bowl final play, we've all seen it, but, bad snap. And Ohio State, Ryan Day specifically, Shane, he said, well, that was on Jalen Milroe and his cadence. It wasn't on Seth. So Kalen DeBoer was asked about it. Any issues with Jalen Milroe's cadence so far in spring? Let's kick it over to him.
Too early for names. Tony Chikalis, Tide Illustrated. Brian Day the other day was talking about the communication between the center, and he said that Seth McLaughlin's problems last year were more about the cadence and stuff like that. Have you noticed anything in that regard, and what have you seen between the communication between the center and the quarterback?
I guess I only can really go off of what we've done right now, and we haven't had any problems there. So, we use our cadence, and it's the clap cadence. And so Jalen, all the quarterbacks have done a good job, I think. From what I've seen, we haven't really had any problems at all.
So not a trash talker, but I guarantee you, he probably doesn't even know that Ryan Day said that, and I'm sure he was made aware of it after that. But
yeah,
if nothing else, Shane, I'm rooting now for Alabama, Ohio State, college football playoff in some scenario in the 12-team bottle, just to go head-to-head here, if nothing else, because they're trying to blame a quarterback on a former center's poor snaps. I mean, how ridiculous is that?
Well, and it's an interesting relationship that these two programs share right now. And I wanted to ask you, because one of the rumors I keep seeing floating around is that maybe Downs is a guy that comes back home. Is that? Do you think that happens in the spring?
No chance.
No. Okay. Got paid and come back? All right. I just love those kind of storylines, because Lane Kiffin, by God, he'll be on the podium the next day just reminding you how dumb this portal system is.
Now, since I said no chance, it probably will happen. You know what?
Yeah. And so will the center here. No, they won't let him come back.
All right, Shane, how about next, kick it all down to Lexington. Big spring for Mark Stoops and company. We have got to get this thing going with a new quarterback, a new offensive line coach, a new offensive coordinator. So much turnover, but you add Brock Vandegrift, you got all these weapons on the outside, you add a running back from Ohio State. I mean, the pieces have got to be there for Kentucky to be a capable offensive unit. And it just, this has got to kill Mark Stoops, Shane, that his program, the DNA of it is offensive line and physicality and toughness. And the last couple of years, as the defense has gotten better, as we finally got receivers, as we've got a quarterback that is now starting in the NFL that we had for 2 years, but we couldn't run the damn ball and we couldn't protect the quarterback. It's flipped on itself. If they could just get that missing piece of the puzzle, get that offensive line going, and they brought back old Coach Wolf back there from Alabama. Let's kick it over to Mark Stoops talking about the offensive line and bringing Coach Eric Wolford back to Lexington.
Mark, you're bringing 4 of your starting offensive linemen back. Bringing Eric Wolford back too. What do you think Wolford? Why do you think he can get more out of that group?
I mean, I'm just confident in Eric. I mean, you used the word getting more out of him or whatever. I know we need to improve in a lot of areas, not just the offensive line. I mean, I want to be better football team. And, I think with the offensive line in particular, I know Eric, and I've worked with Eric several stops, and so I know what he brings. And I mentioned that. And I mean, I think, great knowledge. He's produced a lot of great football players, developed a lot of great football players. He knows what to expect from himself. He recruits at a high level, and he's extremely demanding on the field. So we need to improve amongst, many other positions. We need to be better than we were a year ago.
Specifically at right tackle, how's that?
Yeah, Mincy, I think bringing Mincy in, with all the plays that he's had, the size and the experience that he has, really helps us right away, just with him alone, the experience that he has.
Shane's favorite Wildcat, Gerald Mincy.
Well, I was wishing that Stoops would ask the individual that asked that question, where the hell's my bottle of Kentucky bourbon, Roush?
But how wild is it, Shane? Again, I know I'm down on Kentucky a little bit. And maybe that I just feel that way because I'm always so high on them. But I'm going to throw up their schedule over under 6.5. I mean, looking past the COVID year, Shane, and I realize, some of these may be bowls, but I mean, they've won more than this. I'm looking here every year, Shane, since 2016, aside from the COVID year again, which was all SEC, and they went 5-6 that year. So it's not to say that they were just awful during the COVID year, but if we hit the under here, I don't know, Shane. I don't know where I'm feeling, how great I'm feeling about Mark Stoops and the future of Kentucky. And I know people get tired of me talking about it, so I'm not going to bag on them anymore. But if we are in year 12 here, and we have our worst year since 2015. I mean, I just think that's an awful sign.
Yeah, and you mentioned something earlier with Lane Kiffin about getting money. And that's one, maybe people have forgotten, but there was a time when Mark said, hey, if you want to win more ball games, well, then donate more money. And I'm paraphrasing, of course, but that's basically what's happened here. They've run out here and they've got the guys, they've got the players. And so year after year, you've gotten the quarterback you wanted. And it is, there was the rumors, the noise, it all got kind of crazy and it got lost with that Louisville win last year. But, there was a moment when people were also moving on from Coach Stoops. So yeah, this is a big season for Coach and hitting. I don't know if 7's going to not keep you on the hot seat, but they're expecting big things up there. They want to get back to a 10-win season.
Right, and I remember, Shane, it was trying to think exactly when. I think it was maybe 2 years ago. Yeah, 2021. They won 10 games. They won 9 games in the regular season.
Mm-hmm.
And those players were saying that was a disappointment. Like they thought they were, could win the SEC or at least win the East that year. So we've gone from winning 10 games to 2 years, maybe we can win 7. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's just we're in an interesting place. And again, that doesn't mean cut and run on everything, but I think this is a huge year. Especially after how last season ended and then how the A&M, all that got going. If they have a down year, I think it's going to be the beginning of the end for Mark Stoops.
Well, not just him. There's so much pressure in Lexington right now with the basketball, with Cal and Barnhart. I mean, don't be surprised if all 3 of them ain't gone if this doesn't work out well. So, I think Kentucky fans are they're ready. They're ready for change. And either you provide it this year and win some damn football games, or we'll go out and find somebody that will.
Yeah. Well, Shane, and then on the last episode, we talked just briefly, Shane Beamer talked about the quarterbacks, but the guy that's really going to be helping them make that decision is, of course, offensive coordinator Dowell Loggains. So I thought this was pretty fascinating. He's been around the NFL, the SEC, long time, even though he's not that old. And he shares an interesting story from his Arkansas days. But I just thought this was great as South Carolina is trying to find their starting quarterback for the upcoming season.
For when you're evaluating these guys and figuring things out?
The message to those guys is the team that gets the guy that gets the team in the end zone the most will have the greatest chance to be the guy, and that's what we're going to judge it on. I've been a part of teams that have ugly series that the production outweighs how pretty it is. I remember going back when I was in college, we had in our quarterback room, we had a kid named Matt Jones, Tavares Jackson, Ryan Sorhan, and myself and Rhett Lashley. So obviously the top 3 guys all played in the NFL, and Rhett and I were slappies. But
for when you're evaluating these guys and figuring things out?
The message to those guys is the team that gets the guy that gets the team in the end zone the most will have the greatest chance to be the guy, and that's what we're going to judge it on. I've been a part of teams that have ugly series that the production outweighs how pretty it is. I remember going back when I was in college, we had in our quarterback room, we had a kid named Matt Jones, Tavares Jackson, Ryan Sorhan, and myself and Rhett Lashley. So obviously the top 3 guys all played in the NFL, and Rhett and I were slappies. But Matt Jones,
the guy that gets the video right will be the host of this show moving forward.
Were you a good practice player or a bad one, Shane?
Terrible. I was bad. If I wasn't in there, then I was mad I wasn't in there. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. No, there are in that, but I've never was at that level. There's going to be guys that are career backups. They're not going to get on the field here. But you got to have everybody pushing. Because if you don't, then if the ones feel like they are just inferior, then they're not pushing themselves. You know what I'm saying? So that open competition is definitely something you got to have with a younger team like South Carolina.
Yeah. Well, one guy that is not younger that is on that roster, Shane, Luke Doty, who this spring they're just listing him as an athlete. He's played all over the field. He's played quarterback. He's played receiver. He's played special teams. And now he's kind of doing that all again. But he was asked, in this age of college football, why have you not hit the portal? Why, everybody hits the portal if they're not the starter and they're not getting exactly what they want. But not Luke Doty. And this is a guy, Shane, that came in as a 4-star quarterback. I remember it pretty vividly. Will Muschamp was the coach back in, and they were decimated. I think it was the spring, or it was spring or fall, and they were decimated at receiver. And he said, "I'll go play receiver." He's in it for the team, and he's still like that as a senior. So I just thought this was really cool from Luke Doty.
Luke, with everything that you've gone through, everything that you've seen at South Carolina, it could have been real easy for you to enter the transfer portal in the past, and I'm sure that there's some fans that will bring that up just because of your athletic ability at multiple positions. What has continued to make you want to stay at South Carolina through all the obstacles that you've gone through and the different positions you've played to continue to come back for what feels like, year 8?
Year 13? Yeah, I mean, my parents told me whenever I was being recruited, and it's something I still think about today, is if you took football out of it, would you still want to be at the university? Would you still want to go to school here? Would you still want to, have a life here? And the answer for me at South Carolina was always yes, and it still is right now, and it always will be. So when the questions about transferring come up, it's easy for me because I love this place. I love the city. I love the people. I love the fans, as crazy as they are. The environment, everything about it here, I love it, and I wouldn't change anything for the world.
I think that's a perfect answer right there, Shane.
Yeah, and I think Hot Rod said it best. I love players like this myself too. Growing up, this is what a lot of the kids you saw were there. They were there because they loved that university. They were there because their parents loved it or their grandparents loved it. It was a part of their family, whether you wanted to admit it or not. And I don't know Luke Doty's story, coming into South Carolina, but by God, he'll wear that South Carolina shirt for the rest of his life because he gave everything he had for that university. And it's guys like that make these programs, the flashy ones that we talk about with the NIL deals and yada, yada, yada. That's such a small percentage of that team, Majority of that team are guys like this that are there because this is their NFL. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And again, with leadership like that, again, there are a lot of unknowns with the Gamecocks, but if you can steal a game or two in that first 5 or 6 games. Mm-hmm. I mean, the back half of the schedule sets up really well to make a run. So we all know Clemson's going to be damn overrated as always. You know what? So I'm just saying. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm saying there's a chance it happens. You know what?
Absolutely, and it's going to take some lucky bounces, but it's also going to take some guys maybe that we're not talking about this so much in the offseason to step up and then all of a sudden become that next Leggett or somebody. That they need some more players because there is NFL talent on that roster. It just needs to be discovered.
Right. And then here, so I teased it, Shane. We'll get to it finally to close out this episode, but we had Hugh Freeze, who's got a good lesson for us all here. Apparently this is something he's been doing. And again, I don't always believe everything Hugh Freeze says, so I take everything with a grain of salt. But I still found this valuable, Shane. He's made a lot of mistakes, and that's well documented. And it's something that now he doesn't hide from his players. Let's kick it over to Hugh Freeze.
Hugh, you said earlier you're going to talk to your kids later today, and one of the things you're going to talk about is some things maybe you weren't stoked about, decisions you made in your life that you weren't stoked about. I think showing that kind of vulnerability is really cool. Talk about why you think that's important.
Yeah, I've just been I've done that since I've been at Liberty, and just I try to give real life examples. Last week's words was decisions, and ultimately, man, the quality of our decisions will determine the quality of our life. We can say it however you want, but that's just the facts. If the number of quality decisions you make, usually you're going to like the quality of your life. And I'm following that up now with vision. And if we could ever grasp a great vision of what do I want my life to really look like 10 years from now? Let's take football out of it first. And what do I want that to look like? What kind of home do I want to live in? Does it involve a wife and kids? Is it family? And so what do I want that to look like? And then, therefore, that should be the GPS. They didn't know what a GPS was. I had to tell them. I went through the whole deal. Look, when I started recruiting, I used to have the old map. I mean, a real map. and you, man, all right, I drive this road, and then I get to this town, and then when you get to the town, guess what you did? You stopped at the convenience store, and you said, hey, where's the high school? Because it's not on the map. I mean, can you get me to the high school? And then you got to the high school, and then you got to get somebody to direct you to the player's house for the home visit. That's how it started. Then we were lucky, and we got the Google that you could print out the pages. All right, drive 40 miles on this, take a left. And then we got the Garmin. That's really when I lost them from the GPS. I said, but man, we thought we had made it when we got to put the Garmin up on the dash, you know, and it would take you to the place. But when you had that, you put in the destination first, and then it gave you the directions to get there. And that's what I'm trying to get to now. We've talked about decisions. Now, all right, what is the vision? Then that should be your GPS for the decisions as you think backwards. I kind of told them a somber story a little bit about, I don't know how many of you are blessed to have parents still alive, but some in our room still have them, some do not. I'm fortunate to have mine, but they are getting up in age. And when I start thinking about if stats say an average lifespan is 85 or whatever that is, and you think about, man, I really might only have like 5 years left with my parents, but truthfully, I probably see them a quality time about 5 times a year, so that's probably like 25 times. That kind of changes your mindset of, man, I might need to work backwards and make that a priority. And it's the same way now when I share with them about vision this week is whatever your vision is, that should be the GPS that governs how you make your decisions to get where you want to go. And I'm going to tell them my vision of being an SEC head football coach. And I declared that vision on my honeymoon with my wife, but gave up on it truthfully after 13 years of high school coaching, but she never did. And she would constantly be hounding me about that wasn't your vision. That wasn't your vision. And I'd pretty much given up on it because, man, we've got kids now. I'm making a decent salary. I'm in a good job. And, man, I can't go take a GA job but she thought differently, and she's really the one that encouraged me to take this off the field job at Ole Miss way back for Ed Orgeron that really kept my vision alive. And so I'll share that with them, and hopefully that will help them find some GPS for their decision, and also for our team. What's the vision? Then we better do the little things right. You know, I think about John Wooden, who maybe the most dominant in college sports, the 7 national championships that they had in a run there. But you asked Bill Walton what the most important thing was, and he said day one he told him how to put socks on. He told him how to lace his shoes. He told him, and if you asked him after he got through what he missed the most, he said, I miss practice. You asked Kobe Bryant what made him so great, he said, I never got bored with the details. And so if you really want the vision to be something, then we better work backwards, and those decisions have to match it.
His wife is the reason he's a coach, Shane.
Yeah.
And what did he do to her?
And then you, after Tom, you know, you got to hire a guy that holds onto your phone so you don't get up into somebody's DMs. You know what I'm saying? Keep you focused on your destination. So, yeah, good speech here, Coach.
How about Cousin Anthony? He says he needs a GPS to find some wins.
Oh, love it. I love it, man. Hey, we knew we were going to get this. Hugh Freeze, Bobby Petrino, Lane Kiffin. You know, we knew there was a whole bunch of baggage coming into town. So that's what we signed up for. Sark's another one, you know. Yep. And we're on that fine line, what we can say and can't say. You know?
And you already know, Shane, if DeBoer, if he's a complete failure, they're going to be calling Urban Meyer in a heartbeat. Come save Alabama football. You know what I mean?
Bring them back. Give us all your degenerates. We're back, baby. Thank you, Cousin Rick. Get some cold beer on the way out.
$20 donation. But, hey, that's all we got on this episode. You got anything else, brother, before we hop off?
No, man, I love it. Football content, guys, enjoy it. Enjoy it while it's here because we're about to hit a little spot where it goes. We're back in the list, So let's enjoy the real content while we have it. We got spring portal about to open up, so don't forget. And through all that noise, brother, I thought the biggest one was, hey, reach out to your parents if you still got them, because there's a lot of people that don't, and maybe that was the public service announcement that you needed to hear. It's like, hey, reach out to mom and dad. Make sure they're doing all right.
Yeah, absolutely. And, hey, appreciate you too. Cousin Jared just gave us $5.
Thank you. Thank you, cuz.
Sheba Dog laughing while blushing and covering his mouth with one arm. So there you go. Appreciate you, brother. But, all right, so that's going to do it. I appreciate each and every one of you, especially of those that showed up on the live show. And I appreciate you, as always, brother. We'll catch you on the next one.
See you guys.